Hello, welcome to Oxford Heirlooms, and welcome back to our bodice piece, which we haven't seen in a little while because we've been working on the body of the bubble. Okay, now if you recall, as I finished the bodice, I attached entredeaux along the bottom edge. I've also, with a fabric marking pen, I've marked the very center of the bodice. Now what I need to do today is I need to attach the bodice to the body by sewing it using the method of attaching fabric to entredeaux. Now I'm going to start by turning my bubble inside at the body of the bubble. I'm going to turn it inside out. Okay, now at the center front of the body piece, I've also marked it with a blue fabric marking pen. Now I'm going to turn my bodice piece upside down, and I'm going to position my right sides of my fabric together, and I'm going to line up the two little blue marks. Okay, so I have lined up the very center, of my body piece and my bodice piece, and I'm going to put a silk pin in there. Okay, then I'm going to come over here to the right and find my side seam, and then I'll find the side seam on the bodice piece, and I will line them up and put a pin in right there, like that. Okay, now that I've got that, I've got the center front pinned, the side pinned, but I'm not pinning the back edge yet. You'll notice my entredeaux hangs off the edge of the bodice. One of the last things I do when I sew the buttons onto the garment is I will hand tack the entredeaux to the inside of the garment, but I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, now if you know how to grab your gathering threads, now I always like to pull the gathering thread that's on the right side of the fabric. So I've got some extra thread from my gathering threads, and I'm going to start pulling these two threads evenly, and you'll notice the fabric begins to gather. And I'm going to pull that, wrap it around my finger when the thread gets kind of long. Now I've kind of gathered up to the side seam, so I'm going to keep pushing those gathers with my thumb and my forefinger till they gather on the other side of that seam. Okay, I'm going to keep gathering, and I push that fabric. Okay, now I have finally, I have got enough gathers between the front center and the side seam to where it's the same length as the entredeaux between the pin at the front center and the pin at the side seam. Now I'm going to stop for just a minute here, and I'm going to slowly slide my gathers along my gathering thread until they're basically evenly spaced, and they are the same length, as the entredeaux now. And then I'm going to, using my silk pins, I will pin the gathered fabric to the entredeaux. And I'll be doing this all along the garment. Okay. All right, so so far I have got it gathered and pinned between the front center of the garment and the side seam. Now I'm going to put that down for just a minute because I have already pinned all along the edge of the pink bubble. Okay, now I went ahead after I got it all pinned. you'll notice the entredot is still, you know, it's sticking out on either side of the bodice, but just don't worry about that. We'll tack that down at a later time. Okay, so I've got it pinned. The bodice is pinned to the body part all the way around. Okay, now I have changed my thread back to white thread since I'm now going to be sewing the entredot, or, you know, attaching the fabric to the entredot. Okay, I've changed my stitch length back to a regular stitch length. I'm going to start with a straight stitch, and then I will press the garment, and then I will come back with a zigzag and finish off creating. Okay, I'm going to put the needle in, and it is right next to the entredot ladder. So I'm going to go forward and backward just a couple of times. And then I'll take my pin out, and I'm going to sew this seam. I go slowly because I want to maintain control, and I don't want to float too far away from the entredot ladder, and I don't want to pierce the entredot ladder either. And then when I finish this, I'll go to my ironing board and I'll iron that entredot seam back and then come back and zigzag. And that will be the final part of attaching the body of the bubble to the bodice of the bubble. So that's what I'm doing today. The next thing we'll start working on is the little fancy sleeves for the bubble. Thank you.